What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Postgame Podcast. I'm your host, Cory Smith, here with Charlie Gribble, Pack Power Analyst for basketball, football, everything in between. You've been helping us throughout the year, obviously, throughout the last several years, helping us with everything. But I appreciate you jumping on all the Postgame Podcasts whenever we need you, man. First of all, just your initial thoughts. NC State, a 113-69 win over Florida State on the road. You moved to 2-0 in ACC play on the road, 3-1 overall. We'll go over all the numbers here in a second, but just your thoughts on the way NC State played today before we really jump into things.
Yeah, it felt like utter domination just from the opening tip. NC State got out early. I think it was 11-0 before Florida State even put one to the basket. But
yeah,
19 threes, tied for the program record in a game. And it just felt like you got contributions from, just about everybody you would want to on the roster. So it's another great win. It's on the road. Get that road test. But yeah, just thought it was utter domination on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too, as Wayne said here, great passing, strong defense, and rebounding. Yeah, I mean, the scoring is one thing. 113 points, like the fact that you shot, above 55% on the game, 62% in the second half shooting. You got 35 points off the bench, 30 points in the paint, which actually you actually lost both of those margins, ironically enough, or tied. Points in paint was tied. I believe off the bench for Florida State, he had 38 points, but a lot of that was Luke Laux kind of going, all right, our starters aren't working. We're going to throw some guys out there. Let's just figure this thing out. Whereas NC State got 20 points from Darrion Williams, 21 points from Paul McNeil, 10 points from Quadir Copeland, who actually didn't play basically the second half of the second portion of the first half, I guess is what you want to say, because of the technical foul. Will Wade trying to, make a statement there with him, left him on the bench the rest of the way. And then 19 points from Ven-Allen Lubin, at the 5 for NC State. So just, your starting lineup was dominant. And then you get, 15 points from Matt Able, 13 points from Terrance Arceneaux, 7 points from Moussa Sanye. And I was hoping to see a Colt Langdon bucket in this one or a Jordan Snell 3, but neither one of them quite happened. So you ended up having to settle for 8 players finishing with 7 points or more in this game. Just again, 113 points was the most for NC State in a road ACC game since I believe it was 114, which was over 35 years ago.
Yeah, and a loss.
Yeah, exactly, and a loss in that one. The 113-69 point win, which was a 44-point margin, was the most in NC State history, the widest in NC State history. The 113 points scored on the road or at home against Florida State was the most in Florida State history that they've ever allowed. And again, as you mentioned beforehand, the 19 3-pointers made was the most, or tied for the most in NC State history, which ties the mark from the NC Central game to start the season. The only game where NC State actually scored more points this season than they did against Florida State, which was 114 in that one. So just, again, the offensive numbers are insane, but a lot of that is created by the fact that you out-rebounded them 44-25, by the fact that you got out in transition. You finished all of the turnovers with buckets on the other end, 23 points off of 13 turnovers created. You can't ask for more than what you got from NC State today. And as Jonathan points out here too, the fact that they were able to create a ton off of assists, 20 assists on those 38 made baskets for NC State. Nearly half of your made baskets were assisted in this one compared to just 9 turnovers. I mean, you talk about a team win. This was like the absolute epitome of a team win for NC State.
Yeah, and you mentioned the work in transition. That really kind of stood out to me when I was watching the game. It felt like even if Florida State had a made basket, it was quickly down the floor for NC State on the other end.
Yeah.
I really like the play of Terrance Arceneaux. I know we're going to talk about a lot of guys in this podcast, but I really think the last 2 or 3 games, he's played the most minutes that he's had. I think he scored 26 points the last 2 games, and he had 31 the first 8 of the season. So really starting to see his ascension, his role on this roster, and obviously Matt Able had 15 points tonight, 13 in the first half, 4 threes.
Five.
5 threes, yeah, 4 threes in the first half all from the game. I really think, both him and Musa, I think the season kind of hinges on their development. You obviously want a 7-footer, a guy that can rim protect and provide for you a little bit on the offensive end. I think Musa did that tonight. Obviously, you want to have another weapon along with Paul McNeil on the outside. I think you saw both of those things happen today.
Yeah, I mean, Terrance Arceneaux, you mentioned him, 5 total stocks from him today, too. 4 steals, 1 block. You got four blocks from Ven-Allen Lubin, too. And, yeah, I mean, and a lot of those steals ended up leading to transition buckets for him. I believe at least 3 of those led to transition buckets for him alone. And then I believe 1 was a kick out to Matt Able, if I remember correctly, later in the game. So I'll have to go back and watch. It was a ton of scoring. I mean, you were talking about it beforehand, like every single time that you're writing something about the amount of 3-pointers they made, I was like, oh, somebody else made another one. Oh, God, somebody else made another one. I have to write something else. So
I was like, 4 in a row. They made 5 in a row. I think the tally ended at 7, which was a program record in a row.
Yeah.
But, yeah, literally, it felt like it was just a bombarding. And it felt like a couple of them were obviously clean open looks. But, I mean, I don't think Florida State kicked out as well, I'm sure, as they would have wanted to. But, I mean, I thought a lot of them were, there's a hand there, there's contest there. So nevertheless, it being an open look, but the guys, creating space for themselves and knocking it down.
Yeah, and as John points out here, he said, good win, fellas. He said, love the quick start, shooting extremely well and playing hard. Yeah, I mean, agreed. He said, love the intensity from Williams and Able the past 2 games, trending in the right direction. Go Pack and go Thurs. I still don't like that nickname, but yes, go Panthers. Obviously today, I'm hoping that NC State and the Panthers will go 2-0 today, and then maybe you get the same thing next week because NC State happens to play on Saturday next week. Obviously, they get a whole week off. Maybe the Panthers, if they win today, maybe they play on Saturday next week, and we get this kind of back-to-back mode again. Obviously, it's all resting on the Panthers and NFL scheduling, but we will see. If that ends up being the case. And then, go ahead.
I think Floyd said post-game, he was like, oh, man, if there was a week to have a week off, this would be the week. I think he says his team, feels good about where they're at. Obviously, you got to take into account who the opponents are. I don't think Boston College or Florida State are going to be at the top of the ACC pecking order this year, but, you have that good momentum. You got some things figured out. Obviously, would love to play, as soon as possible, but that won't be the case for NC State this week. They'll have to wait a whole week until the Yellow Jackets come to Raleigh.
Yeah, well, normally I would have said before we get things started, I wanted to kind of give a speech about like all the different things that we have to offer, and we usually give a quick intro. But I do want to tell people, as always, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit like, subscribe, get notifications so you can jump on with us each and every single time we do these. It is a new channel. It's a new website or new name for the website anyway. It's still the same website, still the same web address that you go to, but Pack Power 247 is the new name. If you haven't, go find us on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Go find us on Instagram. Go find us on Blue Sky, everywhere we're at. We don't have a Facebook page. I don't think 24/7 is too crazy about that for whatever reason. They don't want to create a new Facebook page, but you can follow me at Cory Smith on Facebook. I'm posting all of our stuff there, so do make sure that you check that out. And then, as always, if you aren't already a subscriber, do make sure that you go over to packpower247.com to sign up to become a premium subscriber. Obviously, we're going to have as much info as we possibly can over the next week leading up to the game against Clemson. But we'll have stuff when it comes to basketball recruiting this upcoming week with the little dip in games. We can actually go back and circle back and do some of the stuff that we got from the John Wall. We'll also obviously have a whole nother week of portal stuff for football. Transfer portal is still hot and heavy. NC State actually hosting 3 players today. We talked about them earlier today. Davion Gauss that we posted earlier today is on campus, running back from UNC. NC State currently hosting. They just landed a commit from Montana State, an FCS champion at tight end that's kind of filling the Cody Hardy role. And, there might be another that they're still waiting on in terms of the transfer portal as well. So another guy that might be jumping in the mix here soon on the defensive side of the football. We'll see if that ultimately comes to fruition this weekend. But do make sure that you head over there. I believe it is still 50% off. You can still get 50% off through the end of this week. So if you sign up, you get 6 months absolutely free. So just have to get the pitch for our website and everything along those lines too before we really jump into this thing. But all right, let's start with a guy named Darrion Williams, who, this time less than 2 weeks ago, or actually 2 weeks ago, almost to the exact date, I believe, right? It was 2 Saturdays ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 2 Saturdays ago, Will Wade, has to head to the podium and just defend his player about, the fact that he hasn't had great scoring output. He's made winning plays, but hasn't been the guy here lately. Going on the road, obviously, the game against Virginia was not great either. And, both of them were frustrated about that. Obviously, he wanted to get going in that one. But these last 2 games, Darrion Williams averaging over 21 points per game. Today, again, playing a little bit of the point forward. Quadir Copeland missing a lot of the first half obviously helped that. But Darrion Williams, 5 assists in the first half, had 5 rebounds in the first half, and 12 points in the first half, then comes out, finishes with 20 points total, adds 5 more rebounds to finish with a double-double. If Quadir Copeland wasn't running the point as much in the second half, maybe Darrion Williams finishes with a triple-double in this game. But again, just like what you're seeing from Darrion Williams, I think, over these last 2 games, and again, what he's given them has been great, but from the scoring perspective, from an efficiency perspective, 6 of 15 is not a great clip, but 3 of 7 from behind the arc is going to win you a lot of games. And the fact that he went 5 of 6 from the free throw line too, you're getting the Darrion Williams that I know. I hate that we don't have Brian on this podcast, because Brian has been like just screaming into the void for weeks about like, all right, put this guy at the point. Let him, run the inverted pick and roll. Let him be the guy with the ball in his hands, get the high usage rates, and you're getting every single bit of that over the last few games.
Yeah, I think the Trey Holloman injury kind of opened that up. You obviously don't like to see injuries in any case. I think you figure out your team based on who's available, and you can try some different things with other guys being not available. But I think the move so far with him going to the kind of point forward position the last 2 games, you've seen that positive returns. Obviously, like you said, Cory, averaging over 20 points a game, 6.5 rebounds a game, and 3.5 assists in the past 2. Obviously, yes, let's keep in mind the talent of the competition that we're playing, but I think that kind of plays in your favor if you're NC State. Obviously, you didn't win as many non-conference games that you wanted to, particularly against some of the marquee matchups that you did have, but now that you have that kind of the non-conference done, and you're starting the ACC slate, and you're starting off against teams that you don't expect to be that good in the ACC, you still have a little bit more time to kind of figure out your roster, figure out your rotations, figure out what works and what's not. And I think right now, moving forward, there's got to be some decisions made, because I think that you're getting some positive returns with him running the point forward spot, especially if Quadir's off the floor. So we'll see what Will Wade elects to do there. But I would, if I was Will Wade, I would use Trey Holloman more of the 2. I think there's been especially a couple games from Trey Holloman that you've seen that he can hit the 3-point shot, can find his own space, create his own looks. So we'll see what he likes to do. I think post game he said that Trey Holloman would be available next weekend against Georgia Tech in Raleigh. So you'll have kind of your full lineup there in Raleigh at the Lenovo Center. So we'll see what he likes to do. But I mean, I think it'd be hard not to go with him at the point forward spot, because I feel like also there was a lot of looks that Paul McNeil got. I know he led all scores today with 21, but it fell off multiple times. I'd have to go back and look at the stats. But he finished with 5 assists. I'd be curious, out of those 5, which went to Paul McNeil. I felt like when I was tweeting, it was definitely a couple. I was like, oh, Paul McNeil 3, assisted by Darrion Williams. So you're getting that production from Paul, having Darrion at the point forward spot. So it's intriguing, and we'll see what Will Wade likes to do next week.
Yeah, and I was going to say, even in the second half, when he wasn't getting the assists, there was a couple times where Darrion Williams also had some hockey assists where he's given the ball to ditching, kind of giving the ball to Whittier Copeland after he gets a double team. Defenders are dipping off of Paul McNeil to get to Whittier, and then he just hits it to Paul, and Paul hits a three in this one. Yeah, I mean, again, Paul McNeil, like, it's funny because we're talking about Darrion Williams and the production that he's had, and it feels a lot like what we were doing with Paul McNeil right before, the Ole Miss game, or right before the Texas Southern game, and kind of like, all right, now you got to see it again against Ole Miss. Now we got to see it again. He's got it, like, not that he's got to put up, 20 plus points, or God forbid 47 points in another game, but like, you just have to see that consistent production. And I think that's something that Will Wade talked about actually on his radio show on Thursday night, was the fact that he just wants to start seeing, more consistent production. Like, I want to know what I'm getting each and every single time I put one of these guys out on the court. Not to say like, oh, I have to you have to hit 20 plus points every single time, but I have to know that you're going to at least give me either an efficient, 10 to 15, or, hey, if I keep letting you shoot, you're going to give me 20 plus, like you did from Darrion Williams today. Like, Darrion Williams, 20 points. Again, 6 of 15 shooting is not great. But Paul McNeil, 7 of 13, only goes to the line 3 times, goes 2 of 3 from the line, and then hit 5 of 10 3-pointers in this one. Also, added 6 points or 6 rebounds, also added 3 stocks in this game. Like, he did everything that you could possibly ask for him to do in this one. Played 30 minutes and a plus minus, the best plus minus on the entire team, of 36.
Yeah, and it feels more confident. I'll sit here and tell you, the 10 shots today from 3, it wasn't all 10-3 open looks. There was a couple of shots I was like, I'd rather live without that. But, like, it's a guy that's coming off a team last year that was abysmal, to say the least. Confidence is pretty low, and now you've got a whole new roster and a new coach. So obviously, there's a lot of things changing around him, and he's the only lone piece there. But I love the confidence. It feels like it's a complete 180 from what you saw kind of earlier in the season when he was struggling a little bit. But like you said, you're figuring out what players are doing and what you're getting. I think the first player that you figured out what you're getting from is Allen Breed. Mm-hmm. He continues to start. Yes, you're not going to get a whole lot in the stat sheet, but he did finish with 8 points tonight. He did foul out, but it's a guy. But only took 5 shots. He's there, a steady hand on the defensive end of the floor, and then contribute a little bit on the offensive end. And I think, to me personally, it felt like that was the first guy that Will Wade figured out, hey, this is what I'm going to get from him on a night-to-night basis. And it feels like past 5 or 6, Cory, that we've been on this podcast, it's been Allen Breed being, that kind of that consistent, just here's my role, here's what I'm going to do. You're not going to get a whole lot else of it, and that's fine. And I think that's, we see teams, that are really good in the country, top 25, top 10. They figure out what their players are doing, what their roles are on this team. And I think steadily as you progress, we'll have to see it against obviously better competition, but you're starting to see what the roles are for this team.
Yeah, I would put Ven-Allen Lubin in there too. I mean, I think Ven-Allen Lubin has been one of your more consistent scorers each and every single game. Now, in talking to Will Wade, yes, he would love to get more, from a rebounding standpoint on a consistent basis from him, but he's kind of pushed both, Darrion Williams and Ven-Allen Lubin and been like, guys, I need you to be better rebounders for me. Both of them, they finished with 4 offensive rebounds in this one between the 2 of them, and then 15 total rebounds between the 2 of them. Again, Ven-Allen Lubin only 5 rebounds today, but you still get 19 points on 6 of 7 shooting for him.
Yeah, especially Darrion too. I felt like earlier in the year, crashing the glass as much, and size team that really only has Ven-Allen Lubin, obviously Musa coming off the bench as well. For an undersized team, we were getting just murdered on the offensive boards, defensive class early on. So now obviously today, like you said, Cory, earlier, 44 to 25 in the rebounding margin. I feel like that's due in part to having Darrion Williams crash the glass. Neil finished with 6 boards. You're seeing kind of some more help, especially on the defensive end, cleaning up the glass, and then let's go in transition and see what we can do.
Yeah. And then Jonathan had a good question here. He said, will Breed lose minutes to Holloman when he gets back? I mean, I think ultimately, like, and this is no shot at Allen Breed at all. Like, Allen Breed has been a great contributor for NC State all year long, but I do get the feeling that, from talking to people behind the scenes, like, they're waiting on either Trey Holloman or Matt Able or Terrance Arceneaux to push themselves and get themselves in a discussion to be a starter. Like one of those three guys, any of those three guys really to kind of push and become that dude that you have to put in the lineup over Allen Breed. And, I think what you're getting here lately, Trey Holloman, once he comes back, which again, as you mentioned earlier, is expected to be next Saturday. He was out of the boot today. He was in the locker room, playing around, stuff like that. So I think he's okay. But once he comes back, I think they would love to have one of those three guys coming off the bench because you get good offense from them. You might not get consistent offense, but once they go in, they can sometimes be instant offense and give you 10 plus points in a game. So it's just kind of massaging those minutes and figuring out, all right, who's our guy in each and every single game. It just so happens the last two games that both Matt Able and Terrance Arceneaux have been those guys for you. And I'd even, put Moussa Sanye in there too. But like they want for one of those three guys to really give you a reason to put them in the starting lineup. And I mean, hell, even Moussa Sanye, like, all right, we want to find a reason to give you, 20 minutes and give Ven-Allen Lubin, 25 to 30 minutes, play them a little bit together. As Gary mentioned, I know Gary was at the radio show the other day. He said, I've been begging for coach to play Moussa and Lubin together. Couldn't get Copeland in with Williams. Yeah. I think that big lineup is one that's really productive too.
Yeah, you're going to have to. I mean, Florida State, I don't think was the biggest team. I would have liked to see more of it against UVA at home. I would have liked to see that lineup a little bit more, but you're going to have to. I mean, UNC's a big team. Duke's a big team. You're going to have some help on the interior. It's plain and simple. I know that's obviously wasn't extremely evident today. The scoreboard was out of hand for most of it, but you're going to have to play Moussa more. I mean, I think, and I honestly think, since he's gotten here in, what was it, July, August, into the country in general, he's gotten better every game, consistently in and out. He even hit a three today. It was a bank shot at the end of it's that you're going to need to continue to progress if you want to go deep. It's plain and simple. Ven-Allen Lubin's obviously going to give you been consistent. Obviously, you want more on the glass, but just from a shot blocking perspective and from a rim protection perspective, you're going to need Moussa Sanye the rest of the way.
Yeah, and as Jonathan pointed out, it's tough to have that lineup with Abube out today. I mean, I still don't know the exact reason why he was out for this game, but again, you hope that you can have him back just to have more depth pieces as much as you can. If you need the fouls, if you need a guy that can just go bang inside against Clemson next week, which Clemson has actually been a pretty good team to start to early on in the season too. I believe they're 3-0 in ACC play, if not 2-0. I don't know how many games they've played to this point, but another thing I wanted to point out here too, like we talked about, the fact that Darrion Williams was playing at the point forward position. Obviously Whittier Copeland playing at that at that point guard spot too, and Will Wade has said like we're gonna stick with those two as our point guards. When Trey Holloman gets back, like Trey is going to be playing more off the ball as he has the last few times. So we'll see. But again, the impressive part here is the fact that between the two of them, 11 total assists to only 5 turnovers. So like 5 turnovers doesn't seem like a great mark between the two of them, but you're also playing against, like, I know that Florida State has been bad. Florida State now sinks to 7-9 overall, 0-3 in ACC play. Granted, the only teams they played in ACC so far have been all 3 teams from the Triangle, having to go to Chapel Hill, then playing Duke at home, took Duke to the wire and ended up winning that game. And now just, whatever the hell happened today against NC State. Do what?
Brutal opening.
Yeah, exactly. But Florida State, I mean, for every inefficiency they've had on the offensive end of the floor, the way that they've been able to create has been, similar to what NC State has, did under Kevin Keatts in the past. Forcing turnovers and getting easy buckets. NC State only 9 turnovers in this game against a team that ranks number 4 in the entire country. If you go by teamrankings.com, ranks number 4 in the entire country in terms of forcing turnovers at 16.7 turnovers forced per game. The only teams ahead of them, Tarleton State, who forces 18, Iowa State that forces 17.3, and Dayton that forces 16.9. So out of, Power 4, high major, however you want to qualify it, they're number 2 in the country, number 1 in the ACC in turnovers forced. So, NC State, even playing with Darrion Williams as your point forward now, he's not turning the ball over. Like, he's just not making, again, and this kind of goes back to what Will Wade's talked about multiple times. He just doesn't make mistakes when the ball's in his hands a ton. So that's why we want to get the ball in his hands as much as possible. Charlie, I don't know if you had anything else to add to that, or if you just want to move on to, I want to move on to, the bench here again. We talked a little bit about it, but anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about the bench, yeah, absolutely. Matt Able obviously is going to be your guy that you mentioned. 5 or 7 from 3 today, 5-11 from the field. Didn't play a whole ton in the second half. There's obviously got to have some work on the defensive side of the floor. Had 3 fouls, so went to the bench a little early. But obviously, like what you see. I mean, there's a guy. That's a guy that obviously is going to make his heyday. Kind of in the corner. And being an available shooter, but. It feels like each and every game you're slowly starting to see, his production ramp up. I even think Will Wade said in one of the post conferences, or maybe his radio show, that he was going to let Able, kind of work through some of the, freshman mistakes or freshman miscues. And I think you're starting to see just some benefit of it being out there more. I just don't think he was out there a whole lot. I think you had a lot of pieces kind of rotating out there. Some guys producing, some guys not. But again, yeah, I really think, like I said earlier, that the season kind of hinges on guys, and I think that the 2 guys that really come to mind is a guy like Moussa Sagne and Matt Able off the bench in terms of how the season looks when it comes to March.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we talked about it a little bit earlier too, but like I would put Terrance Arceneaux in that discussion too. Like what you're finally getting from Terrance Arceneaux from a defensive standpoint has led to, again, some easy buckets for him, but. I mean, 5 of 7 overall in this game, 2 of 4 from 3-point range. That's the second straight game that he's had multiple 3-pointers. The other thing I want to add about Matt Able too, like on the season. So again, it's funny because I talked about all these things after the UVA game. I was saying, just waiting on Matt Able to get going. Like that's the one guy that I'm like, all right, if he can get going, it feels like the bench can really take off. And potentially he puts himself in the discussion to be. A guy in ACC play to really, push for starting minutes. But the other thing I wanted to add too is that Matt Able, like, again, coming into the season was expected to be, a 3-point shooter for NC State, expected to kind of step up into that role. The only issue was the first 15 games of the season, he had only had 2 games where he had made 3 or more 3-pointers the entire time. So the first 15 games of the entire season, only 2 games with 3-pointers made in a single game. Now the last 2 games, he has 5 in this one, 3 in the previous one against Boston College. You're finally getting, him growing some confidence from 3-point range. Again, I don't expect him to have, 5 of 7 from 3-point range every single time. But if you can get him to shoot 3 of 9, you can add that to, Darian Williams finally getting going from the 3-point range. You can add that to Paul McNeil shooting, efficient clip from 3-point range. Quadir Copeland giving you a little bit. Allen Breed giving you a little bit. Help Terrance Arceneaux, Trey Holloman giving you a little bit. That's 5 guys that you can put out. I mean, like you could put any of those guys out there with Ven-Allen Lubin or Moussa Sagne at the 5, or keep both of them out there and have 3-point shooters from outside. And Moussa Sagne that hit a 3-pointer today. And that's something that Will Wade had talked about. He's like, he's been more efficient than some of our other guys from 3-point range. He's kind of what, you qualify. Miles says this all the time. If you got to make one and take one type of 3-point shooter, the fact that if you make the first one, I'll let you take another one. If you miss that one, you're not taking any more. Quit it. Like if you don't make the first one, don't take another one. So right, once you miss one, we're done. We're done with 3-pointers. So, but he's one of those kinds of guys where, he hit one in this game. If he had maybe gotten another opportunity from 3-point range in the second half, maybe it's a little different story. But again, 2 of 3 for him from the floor, 2 of 4 from the free throw line. You'd like to see him and at times Ven-Allen Lubin get a little better from the free throw line. Ven-Allen was actually 7 of 8 today from 3-point range, but it just feels like there's a lot of different guys that can produce from all over the court for this team right now. And I think that's what's leading to 2 extremely efficient offensive games. Obviously, like you said beforehand, like you have to take into account who they're playing against. But like if you look at the strengths of both of these teams, Boston College is a terrible offensive team, but they're one of the best defensive teams in the ACC and one of the best defensive teams in the country. Florida State, not a great team overall, but they force a ton of turnovers and really try to make you do things that you don't want to do and get easy buckets on the other end. NC State 113 points on the most efficient game that they've had from an offensive standpoint this entire season at 1.524 points per possession in this one.
Yeah, and I thought also the defense, like obviously the offensive stats are going to jump out you. 113 points is kind of what you see first, but I mean, just looking at the defensive stats too, you finished with 7 blocks, 11. I mean, it really felt like Florida State was just miscombobulated pretty much from the jump, and I really think that's kind of I think that's how this NC State team is going to be able to score on offense. It's getting a stop on defense and then getting out in transition. Similar to how NC State teams we've seen in the past. Also thought it helped that Florida State lost their best player, fouled out pretty early. I thought it was middle of the second half. And Robert McCray, that's kind of the guy they've leaned on throughout the early part of this season. But really thought
Wadier Copeland, yeah.
So I really thought it was a defensive effort first, and then getting out in transition. It just felt like Florida State was just kind of discombobulated literally the entire game. They shot 21% from 3, under 40% from the field, and honestly, the 40% from the field kind of a lot of those stats kind of came at the end. It felt like we were trying to rotate some more guys out there, but I mean, Florida State even the whole discussion about this team not showing effort, being lackadaisical. Okay, you say that, but give them credit when they do. I mean, even in a 40-point ball game, Florida State didn't score from the field over in the last 3 minutes. It felt like from the jump, from the opening tip, you saw effort on both ends of the floor. So kind of want to throw that out there because I know it's been a little bit of a topic of, this team's lackadaisical. It's not the effort. I'm not seeing it. Well, I felt like you saw it today, particularly on the defensive side of the floor. I know, again, take into account who you're playing and what the team is, but the road win too. I think that's kind of how you can gel a little bit. We've seen the headband movement, with guys like Paul McNeil and especially Darian Williams. We'll see if that's kind of the magic in the bottle that they're looking for. But I mean, going on the road and you're in the same hotel, all the guys are together. A road trip like that, going to Boston College, going all the way south to Florida State. I mean, some of those things, it's sometimes it's that simple. Just, going on the road, also picking up these wins also is definitely nice. It's probably a nice trip home for the guys right now. But, just getting that camaraderie, being in the locker room, going through shoot around in places that's not at home. They're not going back, to their respective apartments after practice or after the game. They're flying back together. So, hopefully you start seeing that type of camaraderie and that effort moving forward.
Yeah, the other thing I'll add to that, you talked about, the still having the second half effort. I mean, this team is up by 25 points at the half. They created 18 stocks total, 7 blocks, 11 steals in this game. 11 of those between the two of them came in the second half when you're already up by 25 points. 5 blocks and 6 steals in the second half alone. So what were you saying? I couldn't hear you. What?
Over at that point, yeah. Like you said, up 25. Yeah. Commentator on the TV was like, Florida State, they're really just looking to, have something to carry over to the next game. This game's over. And they made a push there to start the second half, and they trimmed the lead to 16, maybe 17 at one point. And we were like, oh boy, here we go. But, it was a quick swing of momentum right out of the under 16 timeout. But yeah, the effort's there. I think we can kind of fully put that to rest because it felt like every time down the floor, it's like, oh, got another stop. Oh, another 3. And Will Wade was pissed, too. I mean, if something's wrong in the second half, regardless if you're up 30, 35, he's still being that energetic coach that we expected and that NC State fans expected. And you hope that you can get that effort and that same mentality from your team as well. And maybe we hadn't seen it, early on, but I feel like this was a classic game where you saw effort, you saw people crashing the glass, regardless if the scoreboard was way out of hand.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because you mentioned that 8-0 run at the beginning. NC State, after that point, outscored FSU 57-30. So, they go on an 8-0 run, and I'm sure Will Wade, the next time around, because I think it was 8-0, and then it was 10-2, and then I think it might have been 11-2. And then all of a sudden, NC State just turned it on and never looked back. So again, those are little things that you're looking for. And, while you might not have it in a complete game, it might not be like, okay, this is an eye opener for you guys because we got beat in this way, or this is an eye opener for you guys because, it was tighter than it should have been. No, you still have stretches in a 113-69 game where you're like, all right, guys, this is where we were lacking defensive effort. This is where we were lacking, we weren't hitting shots. Like what's up with this shot? And I go back to the first half, you missed 3 3-pointers or 4 straight 3-pointers, despite getting 3 offensive rebounds. And it's like, all right. But then after going 1 of 7, hey coach, we ended up finishing 19 of 35 from 3-point range. Like, can you chill with that? No, he's not going to. So, and I think that's kind of what you come to expect from Will Wade. And I think that again is why you're hoping that again, this kind of continues to, compound for NC State. And as Gary pointed out here too, he said, I think TA has turned a corner. He has put together a stretch of 3 games where he looks pretty good. I think he only progresses from here. The other thing I wanted to add about Terrance Arceneaux too was, and this is just from talking to people behind the scenes, like, he's been, by Will Wade, from the very beginning of the season has been really, really hard on Terrance Arceneaux, whether it's on the court or it's off the court. I think back to a few weeks ago, I think it was the Ole Miss game where, he just basically said, like, we're only playing the guys that we trust right now. We're only playing giving guys like great, 10 plus, 15 plus minutes. And if we trust them right now. And I was like, well, what do guys like Jerry Ding and Terrance Arceneaux need to do to be able to get your trust back? And he's like, they have to start practicing harder. Like they have to put together more complete practices and do all these things. And Jerry Ding, I don't expect to see the rest of the way, but Terrance Arceneaux, what you got from him so far has been a response, has been like, all right, I can do all these things. And I've also heard kind of behind the scenes, like, Will Wade has loosened up on the reins a little bit and said, I'm going to let you go out there and play. Did the same exact thing with Matt Able. You're seeing both of them, hey, I'm going to be as hard on you as I possibly can. I'm going to give you every, tool in the toolbox that you can have to be able to go out there and have success. Now it's on you to go out there and do it. And you're getting that response from the two of them. You're getting a response from Darrion Williams. You're getting a response from the entire team in terms of, the physicality, in terms of the rebounding, in terms of the energy that you're getting from all of them. And I think, again, you hope that carries over a full week, because Clemson is not going to be an easy team to face. We know what they have in the back half of the schedule. So, again, all of these things are great for confidence building, but now it's on the rest of the team to kind of come together and say, all right, this is how we have to play every single time out. And if we can do that, then we have a chance to not only, push to get to the NCAA tournament, which is the ultimate goal here, but also, make some serious noise in the ACC and try to push to be all of those things that you talked about beforehand, the Red Reckoning, all these different things. Like, all right, you want to be top 4 in the ACC, you have to do this on a consistent basis. You want to push to be, a clear-cut team in the NCAA tournament, you have to do all these things. So I think what you saw today and what you've seen, again, Boston College more from the offensive standpoint, the defensive standpoint, it was a good defensive game, but not great. Now you're seeing it really all come together these last 2 games for NC State too.
Yeah, and the magic number is 12-6. I think if you 12-6 in the ACC, then
I think 10 wins. If you get a win over, a road win over Louisville, or a road win, or home wins over UNC or Duke, one of those two, like I think that probably pushes them over if you finish with a 10-8 or 11-7 record in the ACC too, though.
Yeah, the ACC is better. I think they even sound 12 teams are in the top 70 in the net. So it is a better ACC. It's a better league. You mentioned Jerry Dang. Would have loved to see him out there against his former team, maybe score a point or two, but just didn't work out that way. But going back to Terrance, yeah, you recruited him to contribute and play minutes. Like that was a guy, one of the first kind of guys to get in the fold for you. Coming from a program like Houston, made it to the national championship last year. Was the first guy off the bench for Houston. So it was a guy that you expected to contribute and play heavy minutes. And it was a guy that also you knew was fantastic on the defensive side of the floor. And just now you're coming into State. Now you're looking to get a little bit more offensive contribution from him. And last 2 games you've seen it. I mean, 13 points, 5 or 7 from the field, and 2 or 4 from 3. You'll live with that, today, tomorrow, and every day this week. So Getting guys like those to contribute, I think, will help this team, especially depth-wise. You're obviously going to have situations where guys are in foul trouble, not available, yada, yada, yada. But you play Georgia Tech next Saturday, so it should be kind of another game. I don't expect Georgia Tech to be, again, at the top pecking order of the ACC. So another game where you can kind of, tinker with some things, figure some stuff out. Yes, it does suck that we have to wait a whole week to see this team play again, but it's another opportunity to kind of get things right before you go and do play Clemson on the road next Tuesday or the following Tuesday.
Yeah, I keep mentioning Clemson. I keep forgetting that it's actually flipped. It's Clemson on the road and Georgia Tech at home. Yeah, I appreciate you figuring that out for me. I screwed that up. But again, you get one home game before you go back out on the road for two more. And both, winnable games like Clemson, Pittsburgh. Those are both winnable games. And you have to show up. You have to be the team that people are expecting you to be in those games. But like NC State has put itself in a really good position. This is a really it's a sneaky tough stretch because everybody's kind of putting a lot of stock into the back half of the schedule and going, all right, NC State has to be able to close out against all those Q1 opponents. They have to be able to, to win, try to find a way to win at home against UNC or Duke. You have to try to find a way to win on the road against Louisville. But like this stretch right here, you just had two road games. You come home for one home game. You go back out on the road for two road games, and then you come home for one home game. And then you go back out on the road again for two road games in a row. So like you get, two home games kind of peppered in there, but again, 5 total road games between all of those. So it's not, or 6 total road games in between all those. It's not an easy stretch by any means for NC State. So
it was,
yeah, go ahead.
Do that. We obviously didn't win a road game all last year. Obviously, you finally finished that out on Tuesday, kind of closed the book on that. But then you go out in your second road game and put up 113 points and all these records and stuff. And I don't even know if they did the 2 Roosters promotion anymore. But it was not used a whole lot last year, and I think they made a wise choice to not continue that this year so far. So 2-0, both coming on the road, and like you said today, in emphatic fashion.
Yeah. 2 Roosters didn't want to lose any money this year. They kind of probably figured, we'll chill out. But I will say there is still a promotion that if you go to 2 Roosters, there's a certain portion that goes. I can't remember if it goes back to NC State or if it goes to like to being able to contribute to to a cause as well. So and as Jonathan points out, win these next 3. That's 6-1 in conference play. And the next 3 being Georgia Tech, on the road at Clemson, on the road at Pittsburgh, before you come home against a Syracuse team that looks much better. And then you go on the road against Wake Forest. That's going to be a sneaky game. It's always tough to win in the Joel. They're going to be, on fire in that one, I'm sure, trying to find a way to kind of reinvigorate that program after, a tough start to the season. And then on the road at SMU. So again, stack as many wins as you possibly can right now, because what the back half of the schedule is going to look like. And road wins are never easy to come by. And that's why today is such a, such a resounding win for NC State. A 44-point win, the biggest margin on the road for NC State in program history against an ACC opponent. Also, the most 3-pointers they've ever had. The, Paul McNeil, 20-plus points. Darrion Williams, 20-plus points. 28 points combined between 2 guys off the bench that haven't been contributing for you. 19 points from Ven-Allen Lubin. Like, all those different things just give you good vibes before you get into this break. And again, NC State now at 3-1, 12 wins on the regular season to this point, trying to get to 20-plus wins and get yourself in the NCAA tournament. Any other final thoughts before we head out of this one, man?
The spread was 5.5 for this one.
So they beat the spread by 38.5?
Pretty much.
It's decent. That's decent.
You'll take that.
All right. Well, Charlie, I appreciate you jumping on as always, and I appreciate every single person on here. We've had, almost 500 total people that are watching right now, almost 100 on YouTube. On YouTube. So again, I'm going to give one last thing here too. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit like, subscribe, hit get notifications so you can jump on with us each and every single time we do one of these. Appreciate everybody for jumping on. We will talk to you guys again soon.